The content presented is for entertainment purposes only. Some content may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. All right, so welcome to part 2 of Top 10 Conservative Views and what Jay Reims thinks about it. So the number 5, I believe, is what we were on. Only got halfway through on the first one, so I'm going to do my best to continue on. Hard work. Each American has an obligation to invest in and contribute to society. I feel like hard work is an American core value, and through hard work and smart work, you can become more than what you were than you started. One of the things I believe in is that we have a FEMA or Army-style camp away from prying eyes of most of the public where the homeless can check in, get the food, medication, and mental help they need to become a productive part of the community. So cleaned up, fed, jobs, and then assist into housing, budgeting, keeping clean, away from debilitating drugs, etc. Make it voluntary unless they are habitual, drug abusers and homelessness individuals. Instead of arresting, they can go to these camps under a court order. I feel pretty strong about individuals who have either, given up on society, given up on themselves, or just given up on life in general and have decided just to be homeless. And unfortunately, with the interesting laws that have been happening over in Los Angeles, California, it seems that that's where everybody decides to head to because it is legal and you can be homeless and in a tent on the sidewalk and stuff like that. Well, something's kind of starting on my computer. Hopefully it's not impeding the recording. I just did some updates, so I'm really hoping that we don't have any issues. It's been quite an interesting day. Couple of weeks, actually. I guess to kind of get sidetracked a little bit, I had a coworker break their arm. They had to go into surgery. My lovely wife is now helping at my job delivering packages, so that's fun, kind of teaching her the ropes. And then I have a student who kind of works part-time. And so as we are getting into peak season, the last week and then through most of this week until today, I've been doing over 140, 160 stops. So I've been kind of sun up, sun down the last little while. So if I'm low energy, that's probably why. So let me hold on just a second. Forgot to turn off my my heater, and it was clicking on and off, and it's making the lights go crazy. I don't know if that's helping or hurting the recording, so I wanted to take care of it. Anyways, so back to this. So yeah, I mean, just like what whatever his name is, Jewish guy, very popular in the conservative realm. Ben Shapiro, that's his name. Couldn't pull that out for whatever reason. So Mr. Ben Shapiro believes that if you graduate high school, you get it and hold down a job, and you wait until you're married to start having children, that you can be out of the poverty level. And I think there's something to say for that. I mean, whether that's the that's the nail in the coffin, that's all you have to do to make it here in America. I mean, I don't know. Because I'm in a position right now where, I'm not right exactly where I want to be. That's why I'm trying to work hard to progress and do better in this life. But I do think hard work and smart work are really important. And I think that's something that's not being instilled and taught in children today. I kind of feel like people are just kind of like letting children kind of navigate their own thoughts and feelings and not giving them a lot of structure And that could be said for my childhood as well. It wasn't it wasn't as structured, I guess, as a traditional household would be. My parents got divorced when I was around, I think, 8 or 9 years old, somewhere around there, between 8 and 10. My poor mother struggled as a single mother for many years and got married to, unfortunately, an abusive person who liked to tell us kids that we were worthless, less than nothing, won't amount to anything in this world. Other wonderful things like that, and told that for many years. I trying my best not to believe it, because I've been told it so many times that sometimes that mentality kind of slips in and slips out. But I think I have what I have because I've worked my butt off for it. I mean, some days I'm working, 6-8 hours a day. Some days I'm working 10 or 12 hours a day, depending on the week and what's been going on. And I feel like I work pretty hard, for my money. Is it, as laborious as like, roofing or bricklaying or something like that, or doing tile? Probably not as laborious, but I put a lot of effort and thought into these podcasts. I put a lot of effort and thought into my gaming content. I put a lot of thought and energy into these outlines. I believe, and setting up the studios. You can see there's a box of stuff over here, so I apologize for those that are watching video wise. The room's not picked up as it usually is in the studio. But I'm putting a lot of effort, putting a lot of money. I'm probably $3,000 in the hole right now, between new computer, monitors, cameras. What else? Microphones, headphones, cabling. Got a headphone mixer. I got a regular XLR mixer for inputs and outputs on the PC. Brand new PC. So I mean, I'm putting a lot of money and energy into this. So I hope and pray that it's coming out good on your guys' end. But I believe that through hard work and through investing into and contributing to the community, I think that's really helpful. I mean, there's been many times where I've put time into assisting and helping in different aspects in our community. Actually just spent almost an hour cleaning up leaves and dirt and snow and ice from the parts that we normally sort all of our packages over at one of the local places out here. I don't want to say where, but I think that's really important. I think if we invest in each other and we invest in our communities, I think we can definitely make the world a little bit better. We can make the world go round, as they say. And so my thoughts with these different homelessness camps, I mean, obviously it would be voluntary for those individuals who want to participate, who want to get clean from drugs, who want to eventually be integrated back into the community as a person that's contributing to society. And it's not a perfect system. It's not a perfect idea. It is an idea. I can't remember exactly where I heard it, but obviously it's definitely something a little bit different than just allowing people to camp out wherever they want in the sidewalks and doing drugs wherever they possibly could want to. And I think that's a disservice for the individuals who really do need the help. Now, there's definitely individuals who don't want help, and I don't think there's a perfect way to help those individuals. I mean, hopefully, through court-ordered stuff, hopefully those individuals can become better individuals and becoming contributing people in our society. But I mean, it's not a perfect solution, but I think for the most part, working hard and working smart and contributing to society is really important. I think that's there's not really anything to say more about that particular topic. I think some people would say, well, what about individuals who aren't your same skin color? And I would say, well, I think that they have the same opportunities and the same possibilities that I do. I think sometimes it can be more difficult depending on where you're living. Obviously, if you're living on the poverty level, and if you're living in a community that continues to believe and espouse that they're victims for the rest of their lives, I don't think that that's really helpful or healthy for anybody. I feel like individuals can get out of these kind of tight spots, and if somebody says, well, these individuals are, they're victimized, and they're trodden down, and they don't have these other things that everybody else has. Okay, well then what kind of program do you think that'll help them out? I can't think of a perfect program to help people out of things, but I think education would definitely be helpful. I think for those places where it's more poor, ideally they could get scholarships, and they can move their way into colleges out of state and get themselves out of the poverty level. I think people who work hard and into careers, in business, they can get themselves out of the poverty level. I believe that individuals who just want a job and they want to just paint fences for the rest of their lives can make it in this world. Is it perfect? No. I just don't know the perfect way to help individuals in places where people are so poor, and the places around there are so poor that they just, for whatever reason, I think the Appalachia Mountains is a really great example. There are definitely a lot of places out there in the outskirts of West Virginia, out in the hollers and in the sticks, where individuals, they just, they have a property of land and a rundown house, and that's what they've had, for several generations. They just have never wanted to move or to aspire to, to more than just what they have. And I think that's fine too. I think there's a place for individuals who, if they just want a plot of land and a home, and they're going to live off the land, and they're going to, raise cattle and pigs and chickens, and they're just going to live off of whatever they can grow vegetable wise. And I think there's a place for people for that. I actually really do believe that, part of this whole thing when it comes to helping, the climate and helping reducing emissions and stuff like that, is to encourage more homesteading and to encourage more individuals to cultivate their own land and to grow their own vegetables and to raise their own cattle and raise their own pigs and chickens and eggs and stuff. And then they can use, barter and trading. I think there's definitely a place for people that want to do that. That's actually what I want to do. Ideally, once we get to a place where this podcast is doing well, and I can do it full time with my lovely wife and our friends. That's what I want to do. I want a homestead. I want to have 8 or 10 acres or so, about 15 or 20 minutes away from the main city, but I can still run in to do podcasting and to upload content. And then I can go home. I can shut my phone off and put it in a big metal box, and I can just, be one with nature and be one with, the things that are going on around the homestead. And, that's I just want a simple life. I really do. I have no want or need to be a billionaire. I have no want or need to be 100 millionaire. I have no want or need to be even a millionaire. Like, I think somewhere around $200,000 or $300,000 would be really great. I mean, then I can have my homestead. I could have my studio in town. Then I can have like a little cabin somewhere that I can get away to. I mean, ideally, what I would like to do is to be able to go camping 3 or 4 days out of the week. And then 4 times a week. I would never get any work done. 4 times a year, I go for, a week-long trip, and 2 of those trips would be out of the United States, and 2 of those trips would be inside the United States and going visiting family. Otherwise, we'd go back and forth to the cabin, and we go check out and camp different places around the country. I think it'd be a very beautiful and wonderful life. That's honestly what I'm striving for, ideally. I mean, if we can get my wife home first, that would be that would be the first step. Well, I guess the first step is to get 100,000 subscribers. So if you haven't already, don't forget to follow, subscribe, turn on notifications, all that fun stuff. Let's get us to our next. Let's get us to our next small baby step. I think our next baby step is 500 subscribers, something like that. Anyways, next value. The value of the free market. Competition drives growth and progress according to top conservative values. This is a very interesting topic, especially when it comes to people who believe that consumerism is a bad thing and our consumer-based economy is bad. I would definitely say it's not perfect. I would definitely not say it's bad. Does it allow people to become parasitical, million and billionaires and leech off of other people in a way that's not conducive to humanity? Absolutely. I'm sure there are dirtbags out there, but from the different people that I've met, and I've shaken hands of different millionaires out there. I've met the CEO and co-owner of Swift, Swift Trucking, some of the big heads of Relive International when that was a big MLM. I mean, I've shook hands with people, and what's really interesting is the majority of the people that I've met have just been just normal people. They just have found a way to figure out how to make money work for them. In a lot of ways, I'd probably say that rich people can be, smarter than me, because I'm not a millionaire yet. But again, I'm not looking for that. But anyways, I think the free market is important. I think that especially business owners need to be taxed less so that they can pay their employees more. Some of that is that the top of the food chain needs to make less money overall, but we need to figure it out without stealing money from one person and giving it to another. Obviously, in my personal belief, fascism and communism and socialism does not work, especially doesn't work very well in America. And as we look back at the different places and times where communism, which is still rampant today. I mean, North Korea, come on, China. But from places like Mussolini and Stalin, people like Adolf Hitler, I mean, are great examples of these socialistic communities and communism that just unfortunately didn't work, and we don't really have a good example of that working well. I would venture to say that there's not really a great example of saying, hey, this is working just great and everybody loves it. In fact, everybody's trying to get away from these places. Everybody's trying to get away from communism and socialism and fascism. And so there's something to say for that, for sure. I believe very strongly in the minimum wage, and it should reflect the funds needed for a single student working full-time, going to school full-time, and that they should get paid enough so that they don't have to go into debt. I think that's very, very important. Whatever that number is, and that can be a long discussion in and of itself. Either way, that should be the pay scale bottom, and currently it's way too low. Very many times I've talked on the podcast how in Utah, our minimum wage is still $7.25. Was it $7.25 an hour or $7.50, $7.25, something like that? And it hasn't changed since like 2008. I think the last time it changed was like literally in 2008 when the housing bubble burst. And they changed it from like $6 and something to $7.25. And it's been $7.25 since 2008. And I think that's astronomically too low. I think the only way that would work for individuals if it was somebody with a big family and all of their kids went to work, and they contributed to the family in that way. That would be the only way to really make it work, or to have multiple families in one home. I think the last one I talked about where a lot of the Latinos that I worked with in different warehouses and cabinet building and other things, that's what they do. Like they have like anywhere from like 2 or 3 different families. They all live in the same home. They kind of have a decent sized home, but several families live there. A lot of people have a lot of bunk beds. They share a lot of rooms. And then they have multiple people go to, multiple places, and they pool their money, and, they make it work in America. And I think that's kind of ridiculous. I mean, I I think we probably have enough room in our home to maybe, house a few kids, but a second family, I think that'd be kind of difficult. I think the homes would probably need to be built differently. You'd need to have 2 kitchens, 2 master suites. Like it'd be a little bit difficult. But I guess if you put 2 homes together and you have, kind of a partition where people can come and go as they please, I mean, that might work. I don't know. I haven't really seen it happen too much, unless you're talking about Mennonites and Amish and maybe individuals like fundamentalist Mormons and things like that, where they house a lot of families and compounds and such. But unfortunately, those cults don't end up going so well. And we have many examples to share about those things. So I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it, and I don't know if I would be close enough to another couple to say, hey, let's be roomies. Because again, like what happens when you start having kids, and what happens when they start having kids, and what happens if you each want to have a different dinner time, and you only have one kitchen. How's that going to work? I don't know. But I really do believe that the minimum wage should reflect, a student working full time and going to school full time and is able to pay for school, pay for their housing, pay for their food and gas and vehicle and cell phone and all the necessities that they need to make it as a student. And that should be the bare minimum, and it should reflect that. Maybe it should change every 4 weeks, maybe every 4 weeks, every quarter, maybe every quarter, every 3 months. Maybe they sit down and they evaluate, or maybe once a year they evaluate where they're at, cost of food, cost of goods and services, cost of living, cost of fuel and gas, and it should reflect that. I think that would be acceptable. How is that going to work? I don't know. But some of these larger conglomerates, I mean, they could definitely, the Jeff Bezos and the Elon Musks of the world could probably have a pay cut and pay their employees pretty well. I don't know how. I'm actually curious, how well is Elon Musk paying his employees? Average Tesla employee salary. Gosh, I'm going to be super stoked if it's really good. Oh my heavens. Oh my heavens. No freaking way. That can't be right. Is that right? Ugh, field technician. They get paid garbage. Okay, maybe this isn't, I don't know what this, Indeed.com. Zippa, typical senior software salary. Well, some of these numbers look good. Like, I'll just be honest with you. So, service technician starting at $24.96 an hour, so basically $25 an hour. That's not bad. This is what sucks. Field technician, $15 an hour. No, not going to be able to make that. Firmware engineer. This is just average salaries at Tesla. Firmware engineer, $227,000. Senior software engineer. Electrician, $33 an hour. Wow. So there's actually a lot of different personnel making, 6 figures, which is good. I mean, it's not terrible. I mean, $230,000. That's no small amount, but you think that, you make it when you make $100,000 in a year. And I've only done that once, 1 year in my whole lifetime. It wasn't as much as we thought it was going to be. But I think the free market is really important. I think that people should, have relatively low, laws and stuff around, what they do with their business and how they conduct their business. And there should be, less litigation and less rules around different things, especially when it comes to like taxing. Like I just don't really believe in like extra taxing against business owners. I don't believe in extra taxes against like people that do oil and stuff like that, because, we need to save the planet. It's like, well, we don't need to save the planet today. Why don't we normalize everything and get everybody paid right? And, let's get the poor and the down and trodden and those who, don't have clothes on their backs. Let's get them back into society. And then once we get the majority, like the greater majority of our society up on its legs, then we could probably start talking about worrying about like climate stuff. And honestly, here's the really funny thing about climate change is that, what's really more important than putting more taxes on gas or switching from gas to electric? How about the things that are falling from the sky out in the universe that could be large enough to be humanity killer? How about we worry about figuring how to find falling pieces of debris and asteroids and how to vaporize those or push them away so they don't come close enough to hurt us, obviously. I think that'd be pretty important. I don't know. How about the super volcano that's sitting just underneath West Yellowstone? What are we going to do when that thing blows? How are we going to protect ourselves from the fall from that? And any of these things could happen, I don't know, tomorrow, where this whole climate change thing, depending on who you talk to. I mean, honestly, like I really do believe that we are having an effect on our climate. I mean, obviously, like look at places who have larger vehicle congestion and how much, how bad our air quality is with those different places around the world. I mean, obviously, that's going to have an effect. And if people are breathing that, I mean, think of the individuals who are even more sick because they're breathing that kind of air. So like, how do we do better with that? I think that's another important thing we should worry about. I feel like if you're really worried about the environment, we should be growing more trees in metropolitan areas. I think we should be spreading out in metropolitan areas. I think we should be encouraging homesteading. I think we should be encouraging more large broadleaf mature trees to be grown on every single piece of land and in every place that we possibly can find. And I think we need to spread out more so that the air can dissipate and we can actually breathe good air. I mean, I feel very lucky being in, small rural Utah, where the air quality is really good. I really do enjoy that. I don't miss feeling like I have smoker's lung all the time when I was growing up in Arizona around the Phoenix area. So yes, these are some things to think about. How about doing more agriculture locally, having more, large, sustainable, renewable pastures. How about more people growing their own, vegetables and stuff so we don't have to truck in as much. I mean, doing more self-sufficiency. I really do like the idea of solar panels, but, and electric cars, but not without the means of destroying them at the end of life and ensuring that the different materials that are being used in them are not going to harm us any further. That's something that I'm very worried about when it comes to lithium ion and cobalt and all the other very, cancer causing, very, very bad for human beings, especially if it gets into things like, water supply, or if you burn these things and what happens when they're in the air. So that's my big thing is that, like, yes, definitely let's help the environment. Let's definitely reduce emissions inside of big cities, and let's start to worry about thinking more locally and growing more locally, and even encouraging individuals to grow their own stuff. And let's figure out how to do this thing. I'm all for it, but you gotta complete the circle. It's not just we need to reduce our carbons and we need to do it now. because they keep pushing back this doomsday. I can't remember if it was an article I read, but there's an article that kind of went on along the different doomsday radical ideas that have been, produced over the past, several 4 or 5 decades or whatever. And now we're into the climate change, rather than global warming, rather than. Anyways, I digress. I'll keep more of that to myself, but I do believe in the free market, and I think if we can, keep from hurting other people, I think that's really important. On the immediate scale, long term, obviously we need to keep looking at that stuff, and we need to, have proper regulations on stuff, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with the mRNA technology and what's going to happen with that once we start seeing the long-term issues that people are having. Only time will tell, obviously. But Russian stuff out. I mean, the sad part about it is Big Pharma, the FDA against Big Pharma I think they have discontinued more. Now, take this with a grain of salt. This is just what I think. I don't have anything to back this up, but I think they have been discontinuing more medical drugs than are out there today. Or maybe I'm saying that wrong. FDA recalls. Sure. How often? Recalls how often? Okay. How often? On average, FDA recalls on average 4,500 drugs and devices are pulled from U.S. shelves each year. Holy Hannah! Is it really that many? This is drugwatch.com. I mean, whether that's true or not, I'm going to keep that with a grain of salt. But sure enough, that's what it says right here. On average, about 4,500 drugs and devices are pulled from U.S. shelves each year. The recalled products have U.S. Food and Drug Administration approval and in many cases are widely ingested, injected, or implanted before being recalled. Although the FDA may identify concerns regarding the safety of a drug, it is the responsibility of the manufacturer to initiate and execute a recall. On the other hand, the FDA can mandate the recall of a device. And, this is part of one of those things that, we definitely need to have, different laws and stuff in place. I think just allowing people to govern themselves is a good idea to a point. I think we've given Big Pharma too long of a leash, and I feel like they have been, running rampant and just kind of doing whatever they want over the last, I want to say at least the last 2 decades. It's just been the Wild West with medical stuff. And what's really interesting is that they are the biggest issue, and this was in another podcast, but the big issue with Big Pharma is that they'll take a medication, they'll add another thing to it, and then repurpose it as another product so that they can keep the drug going once the patent lapses. And so that's kind of the issue that we had with the pain management pandemic, with everything that was going on with Oxycodone, Oxycontin. Because it was one of those drugs. It was at the end of line, and they wanted to keep it going, and so they added a time release coding to it. Now it's a new drug. Repatent it. It's different. Now they can resell it. And they repurposed it for pain management and all the shenanigans that happened with that. Okay. Moving right along. I know I kind of got a bit winded with that. But yes, like free market, sure. Less regulation is good. However, there does need to be some regulations in place, obviously, to protect people not only from their own selves, but to the big, large companies that'll do whatever it takes to get profits. And that's something I think is really important to understand, is that we're kind of in this day and age where it's profit over safety. And unfortunately, some of these companies, especially big pharma companies, they weigh the risk. They weigh out the risk, and so they know going into it that people are going to get addicted to these kinds of products, or they could potentially kill a lot of people. And they think about how many people it could possibly affect. They think about how much money they would have to pay out, and if they make a profit, they go forward with it. And that's something, obviously that's a fundamental thing that we need to change about human beings and the way that we look at human beings. We're not cattle, we're not, ants, we're not, nebulous beings. Like, we are human beings. We are just like everybody else that's on this world. Sure, we might have bigger noses or larger ears or smaller ears. Maybe our eyes are closer together. Maybe our skin is a different color, but we are all part of the human race. And I think we should treat each other as such. And so there needs to be a happy balance with that. And unfortunately, the scales have definitely are heavily weighed in the favor of those that just want to profit without a lot of regulation, and are abusing it, unfortunately. All right. Pride in country. Conservatives believe patriotism should be a natural part of each American's life. There's definitely just something to say about radicalized nationalism, especially when it comes to individuals like part of the KKK or Nazism and stuff like that. There's some small fringe groups out there that are practicing these things. But I do feel like we should have a bit of pride in our country. I think we should be proud to, put our hands over our hearts or salute the flag when it is raised. When we have somebody sing the national anthem, I think we should pause and we should, look towards that direction and be reverent. Like, I think we should have pride in our country. But I'm a third generation immigrant, and although it has its flaws and imperfections, I still believe we have the greatest country on earth. And I think it's important to have pride in your country, and you can have pride in something without being prideful in oneself. I support those who are protecting our streets and our borders, and even though it seems they don't have the means or not given the right orders to do their job properly, I think that the 2 million plus illegals that have crossed our southern borders since 2020 is a testament to bad leadership and bad government officials and bad policy in general. Both of my grandfathers served in the military, my uncle in the Marines, and many friends and family of, and friends of the family that are in the police force and military. And I think the vast majority of the situations that they get themselves into are done properly. It is unfortunate that we continue to squabble over the smallest of percentages of military and police who do a bad job, and we should fire those individuals, have better training and retraining, and obviously those individuals should not work in the military or police force again once they are released. Like, I believe very strongly that people should be, if they made a mistake and they did something wrong, there should be a disciplinary action towards it, or a punishment up to, even termination. I think I think some of these individuals who, these force organizations where they don't prosecute or they don't hold people accountable, for, anything that they do. And I think that's very disingenuous. I don't know. I can't say right off the top of my head which organization it was that they basically said, oh yeah, we don't prosecute our individuals. We just, let them go. They do their time away. And then once they're done with that, then they come back to the force. And I don't necessarily believe that that's appropriate. I think if somebody does take a life, that obviously it should be investigated. And if it is, self-defense, or if they did it accordingly to the protocol, policies, and procedures of an officer, and maybe even have a little bit of leeway because, it is a stressful situation. Like your adrenaline is pumping, like all of your endorphins and everything are just like on full blast. So, I mean, yeah, you are going to make some mistakes. But obviously, like, if you do take a life and you do it improperly, you should lose your job. I think that's something that is appropriate. I also believe that we can keep God in our decision making and leave our religious ideologies out of decision making. I feel that we can treat people better when we keep our beliefs in something greater than us and seeing ourselves as brothers and sisters through God's eyes. I also believe that we need to back up our decisions with objective data, keeping church and state separate in that way. And I think that's really important. I think a lot of times there's some of these radicalized libs and radicalized Democrats who believe that, church and state means, there's no discussion of God, there's no prayer, there's no decision making and believing, that, anybody in this world, we're all brothers and sisters of the human race. And, there's a great possibility, that we do have a divinity within our nature. I mean, whether that's true or not, I mean, I can't prove it one way or the other. And I don't think there's anybody even smart enough to prove one way or the other, whether a supreme creator does or does not exist. And, but I do feel that we should treat each other as if, there was a supreme creator, and we are going to be judged after this life. And I think we should be good to each other as best as we possibly can. And I think we can do that in decision making and still trust in God without trusting in, the Baptists, or just trusting in the Mormon religion, or trusting in the Catholic religion, or trusting in the Jehovah's Witness religion. Like, I think we can relieve ourselves of our religious ideologies, but still believe that we are all under this one blanket creator, and we should treat each other well. I think that's something that's really important as well, of having a pride in country. But I digress. Wow, this has been a really interesting, and this is something that's been fascinating as well. I just want to say, like, this has actually been a really interesting kind of wake-up call of, like, just reminding myself where I'm at when it comes to conservatism. Like, I think we should preserve, the American life. I think we should preserve our ideals as through the edict of the Constitution, the laws of the land. And I think we should definitely do the best that we possibly can to make our forefathers, proud of, what we've accomplished. And unfortunately, we're not as proud as we used to be. I think we're losing a lot of those core values when it comes to this wonderful this wonderful thing that we've created over time. And although it's not perfect, and I think in a lot of ways it's it has gotten some things worse and some things better, I still think we still got one of the greatest nations in the world, and I think that we should preserve that at all costs, because I think if we don't, we're starting to slip into these other sections of belief, especially when it comes to fascism and socialism and communism. And these are the things that we fought for pretty much the whole two, not decades. Was it centennials? The two centennials? What's 100 years? What is 100 years called? It's a century, right? Yeah, 100 years of century. So the last 2 centuries, I think we've done pretty good, even though it's not perfect. And I think we still have instilled some socialistic like ideals and stuff when it comes to things like Social Security, when it comes to things like, giving money to different organizations, both radical and not. Like, there's some shenanigans going on. Like, granted, like, look at these different bills that keep getting passed and all the pork that keeps pushing in. Like, people are lining their pockets. Like, lobbying is out of control. I really do wonder why lobbying is still legal. I think it should not be legal, but I don't know. Maybe that's a radical view for most people. Opposition to special interests. The government and its leaders should operate independently of pressure from special interest groups. Yes, I strongly believe that. I was just talking about lobbying. It sucks that we still have gain of function research. I don't want to get into the coof, but yeah, that's something that it's pretty awesome. Insider trading and stock market manipulation. I believe that if you are in the government, that you should be paid a fair wage and should reflect the median income in which they should be in service of the people. Sure, they should be able to own business, but they should have other people run them in their absence. So obviously if you're let's say you're a politician, you're going into politics, and let's say you won your race and you and your wife and 2.5 kids and a dog, you should get paid enough to take care of yourselves, obviously. Now, if you are a big writer and you have lots of books that come out all the time, and let's say you own a business and you have a podcast, and let's say you're well off. Let's say you make $500,000 a year. Well, I don't think you should be paid. If you're already making $500,000 within the different businesses and different acquisitions that you have, or, stocks and bonds and stock market and not other nonsense, then yeah, you shouldn't be paid. You get paid plenty of money. Why should the federal government pay you for a job that you don't need to get paid for? I think that's something that should be considered. Now, whether these individuals should be paid more than, this is where I feel like it should reflect the median income. If the median income in let's say in Utah, let's just do a thought experiment here. Let's say the median income in Utah is $150,000. Then the constituents of, the senator or the congressman or whatever, they should be paid $150,000. And you know what? If you're able to grow the median income and that median income goes to $175,000 a year, then yeah, you should get a raise. Why not? If you're doing a good job, you should get a raise, just like any other job. Now, should you be paid outside of your means? Maybe a little bit, but not exponentially. I don't think people should be making hundreds of millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars because of their position. I think that's something that's really important. I also believe that we should have 2-year terms for any local or federal government servant. That's really important to understand. Government servant, they are there to serve people, not themselves. The way that we have stuff set up where people can be career politicians and they can make tens of hundreds of millions of dollars because of their position, and they can receive lobbying money, and people can give them money through super PACs and all this stuff. Nah, it doesn't work. That doesn't work like that for me. Okay. We should never get stuck with someone who does a bad job. And we should easily be able to relieve people of if they are doing illegal things. So we should get rid of lobbying, special interest groups, and political officials who shouldn't be able to profit off of their positions so they can focus on passing laws. I think that's really important because it already takes a long enough time for a law to get passed when it goes through the different levels and gets all the way up to the Supreme Court and all that fun stuff. It takes an absorbent amount of time to get a law passed. So why are we filling that up with individuals who can have different meetings and backdoor deals and stuff like that? They're going to have so much more time if they can get paid for what they need, or if maybe they're well off and they don't need to get paid. That's perfectly fine. And they can just focus on serving the people and taking care of their state and taking care of their counties and taking care of everything that's going on the local level, which is honestly the most important thing we should be focusing on. I think it's really silly that the federal government is so big right now for its britches. It needs to be 3/4, and a lot of that spending too. I could go on into that. The books should be balanced. The budgets should be balanced. If they can't pay for it, then they defer it to local. Okay. The sanctity of the Constitution. Our nation's founding fathers were guided by a core set of principles when they laid down the framework for our country, and those goals should continue to be upheld according to conservatives. So according to conservatives, these should be upheld. Absolutely. I do believe very strongly about that. I do believe, all man should be created equal, and this is all a part of something bigger than ourselves. In many ways, I'm an originalist when it comes to the founding documents of the United States. I believe that the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, etc., were written in the past, but they are the guiding force to keep our country intact. I believe very strongly that our forefathers believe what they said and meant for those documents and core values to continue today. I really do believe that. I really do believe that. I mean, it's just such a beautiful document. Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. I literally get goosebumps when I read this kind of stuff, because it's such beautiful wording. And, is it perfect? I mean, some can agree or disagree on its perfection or not, but it was written by individuals. It was written by human beings. So there's going to be flaws. There's going to be imperfections. There's going to be bumps across, throughout the road. And I think it would be a disservice to Americans as a whole if we completely demolish the foundation to rebuild from the ground up, because I believe that right now, the only reason that we're having these more bumps in the road is because of bad policies. It's because of bad laws. It's because of bad regulation. It's because of bad tariffs. It's because of bad, overreaching taxes. It's bad because of individuals who are in power right now, who are overreaching and have the ability to cancel people by just putting pressure because it's coming from the White House. I think it's really important that we keep these things intact, and then we add or subtract things along the way that seem to be the best practice to enact the best in humanity. And I think if we don't think that way, this is where I strongly believe we should enact laws in the belief that we are all children under a supreme creator, and that we're going to be judged by the things that we are doing in this life. And even though this is coming from somebody who is an agnostic theist who believes there is a God, but I don't believe there's any way to prove or disprove, but I'm going to act in a way, I'm going to treat people the best that I can as if I'm going to be judged at some point. At some point, as if some point when I pass on and I go into the next life and and I'm before, God and Jesus Christ, and they can be like, this guy was pretty good. He wasn't perfect. He said some stupid things. He did some stupid things, but you know what? Jay Reims, you're all right. Why don't you come on through the pearly gates? And, and I hope that's the case. I hope that that's, there's good things that are going to be happening after this life. And I believe we should act in a way where we can treat each other with love and dignity. And we should do it in a way to better humanity. This is what's really important, because if there's going to be a law enacted or an emergency something or other, it would be really important to not only have the data involved, true, scientific, peer-reviewed, concrete data, not just made up facts and similes of data, but data that reflects a way where we can say, look, this is why we're making our decision. Here's all the information. Here's all the data. Here's all the talking points. Here is all the doctors and scientists who believe this kind of stuff. And here's where we're at on these things. And we would like for you to come along with us. How about we do it this way? And then encourage people, hey, why don't you come over here and why don't you come with us and help us to push this and to make this a reality. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come from the left here for just a minute. Just to kind of say, okay, this is what we're going to do. Here's another thought experiment. So let's say climate change is definitive. Let's say climate change is happening. And if we seriously don't make some serious moves over the next 100 years, we're going to have lots of bad things happen to us. Let's say this is true for the sake of this thought experiment. So I would say, okay, scientists, give me the best data you got. Awesome. We have the best data we got. All right. So here's the best data we got. Here's the scientists that say, hey, we need to get these things at a certain level of carbons per million in the atmosphere. We can do this with, growing more trees. We can do this with spreading out, human beings and, kind of taking apart our big, huge, tall buildings and cities. And we're going to spread people out and we're going to introduce more water into places in the desert. And we can get these big, broad, leafy trees. And we believe that if we can grow 10 million trees over the next 100 years, we could halve our carbon footprint. And that will reduce our carbon footprint. It'll better our air quality, and it'll overall benefit our lives. Here is the data in black and red, or black and white, whatever, however you want to say it. And you say, come, see this data. Talk to these scientists. Talk to these individuals who believe that this is really important. And then go and talk to people on the other side and be like, hey, this is the information that we got. This is something we really strongly believe in. We would like for you to come on our side and let's get some laws passed and let's get these 10 million trees up over the next 100 years. And try to work on the other side and to convince people. Because the problem with fascism, the problem with communism and socialism is that you can't enact these changes without some serious tyrannical laws and some serious physical adaptation of enacting these laws. But if you can convince people that this data, this is the thought experiment, if you can convince people of this data, that if we don't do something in the next 100 years, and we can see the changes, and we can get enough people on that side to enact laws voluntarily and to come together and to do these things that are needed to get done. Wow. What a more interesting way to get people to do what you want them to do. If you have the data, if you have the individuals that can talk and to give good talking points and to convince people to come to that side, you'd have a lot more people on your side and a lot of people following the lines of, all this whole climate change scare that's now been enacted. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening to another one of my rants. I really do appreciate it. This is probably going to be the last one that I'm going to focus so much on, conservative stuff, just because it seems that the algorithm likes more exciting topics and wordings and, and titles and stuff. So this might be the last one I'm going to do for a while. I'm going to focus more on news and philosophy and articles, I think, moving forward. So, and from my family to yours, good night. Today's video is sponsored by viewers like you, so thank you. If we earned your subscription today, don't forget to hit that red subscribe button, click that damn bell, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a content release. The best way to support the channel is to like this video, share it with family and friends, and don't forget to leave a comment down below. Send all of your topic ideas, articles, and video links to theperiodicreview@gmail.com. All of our links are in the description down below.